Los Angeles, 1981. A 15-year-old girl walks down a dimly lit corridor, her face calm but her eyes uncertain. Cameras flash. Directors whisper. And the world, watching from behind the velvet curtain, doesn't see a child. They see a symbol. Her name is Brooke Shields. By that time, she had already appeared on over 300 magazine covers, more than any teenage model in history. Vogue, Time, Elle, all had crowned her as the most beautiful girl in the world. But beauty, in Hollywood, was never innocent. At just 12 years old, Brooke starred in Pretty Baby, 1978, a film that portrayed her as a child prostitute. The movie earned critical acclaim and global outrage. Critics called it art. Others called it child exploitation. The debate still burns to this day. When Blue Lagoon hit theaters in 1980, Brooke was only 14, yet the film's sensual tone turned her into a global sex symbol overnight. The movie grossed over $58 million worldwide, a triumph for the box office, and a tragedy for a teenage girl who couldn't escape her own image. Every photo shoot, every talk show appearance blurred the line between fame and violation. Then came the Calvin Klein jeans ad. Just 15 years old, whispering the infamous line, "You want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing." It aired on national television over 900 times in a single week. Sales skyrocketed by 300%. And Brooke Shields, still a minor, became the face of America's most controversial campaign. But what happens when the world sexualizes a child, then blames her for growing up too fast? Behind the flashbulbs and glossy covers was a girl struggling with panic attacks, control issues, and a haunting sense that she had been seen too much, too soon. This is not just the story of a star. It's the story of how fame, and an industry hungry for desire, can destroy innocence before it ever learns what it means. Brooke Krista Shields was born on May 31, 1965, in Manhattan, a city of dreams and cameras. Her father, Francis Shields, was an executive from a wealthy New York family. Her mother, Terry Shields, was a struggling actress with one mission, to make her daughter a star. By the age of 11 months, Brooke had already been signed to the Ford modeling agency. Her first commercial was for Ivory Soap, a baby in a white bathtub, smiling at the lens. It was innocent, and it sold millions of bars. That image, of purity turned profitable, became the foundation of her entire childhood. By age 10, she was on the cover of Vogue. By age 12, she had earned an estimated $100,000 from modeling, more than most American families made in a year at the time. But behind the flash, there was control. Every decision, the clothes, the poses, even the expression on her face, came from her mother. Terry called herself the boss, and the industry listened. Photographers saw Brooke not as a child, but as a concept. One infamous 1975 photo shoot for Playgirl's sister publication portrayed her in suggestive poses, at just 10 years old. The images would later resurface, fueling lawsuits, debates, and ethical nightmares that still echo today. At school, Brooke was quiet. Her classmates saw her on billboards but rarely heard her speak. She once said in an interview, "I learned to smile before I learned to feel." That sentence, simple and haunting, described her better than any headline ever could. By 13, she was working up to 14 hours a day between school, shoots, and interviews. She wasn't allowed to have sleepovers or teenage crushes, those didn't fit the schedule. When other kids her age were discovering themselves, Brooke was being marketed as the nation's fantasy. And her mother, fiercely protective yet relentlessly ambitious, dismissed criticism by saying, "She's not a child. She's a professional." But that sentence, like a curse, erased Brooke's right to be young. Hollywood didn't steal her innocence in one night. It happened slowly, photograph by photograph, contract by contract, smile by smile, until the line between Brooke Shields the girl and Brooke Shields the icon no longer existed. By the late 1970s, Brooke Shields had already become a phenomenon. At just 12 years old, she was cast by director Louis Malle in Pretty Baby, 1978, a film that would change her life forever. Set in a New Orleans brothel, Brooke played Violet, a child prostitute. The movie was lauded at the Cannes Film Festival, earning a nomination for the Palme d'Or, but behind the applause lay outrage. The film featured scenes that critics called artistic, others called exploitative. Countries like Canada, the UK, and Australia restricted or banned the film entirely. Meanwhile, American networks debated if the director should be jailed. Yet despite the uproar, the film grossed over $5.8 million in the US, a remarkable figure for an independent drama. For Brooke, it wasn't just a role. It was the start of an identity crisis broadcast to millions. She became both victim and icon, too young for the image she represented, too famous to escape it. After Pretty Baby, Brooke returned to modeling with unstoppable momentum. Between 1978 and 1980, she appeared in more than 150 magazines, from Harper's Bazaar to Rolling Stone. Brands lined up, not just for her face, but for her contradiction, innocence wrapped in temptation. Then came The Blue Lagoon, 1980. Shot in Fiji over 5 months, the film portrayed two shipwrecked teenagers discovering love and desire in isolation. Brooke, only 14, was again the center of controversy. Despite studio claims that body doubles were used, the audience believed otherwise. The result? A global obsession. The movie earned $58.8 million domestically, making it one of the highest-grossing films of the year. By now, Brooke's face was a cultural landmark. She became the youngest guest ever to appear on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. When asked if she understood the meaning behind her roles, she smiled and said, "I just do what they tell me." It was a line both innocent and chilling. Between the ages of 12 and 16, Brooke Shields had become a multimillion-dollar brand, her net worth surpassing $4 million before she even finished high school. But behind every headline, there was a question no one dared to ask. Was Hollywood building her career, or consuming her childhood? By 1980, Brooke Shields wasn't just famous, she was everywhere. Her face sold magazines, her name sold movies, and soon, even her jeans would sell desire. At 15 years old, she became the star of Calvin Klein's 1980 ad campaign, directed by Richard Avedon. A single line would ignite a cultural wildfire. "You want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing." It aired more than 900 times across American television in 1 week. Sales of Calvin Klein jeans surged by 300%, and the campaign became one of the most talked about ads in history. But for Brooke, it marked the moment she lost control of her own narrative. Religious groups called the ad obscene. News outlets accused Calvin Klein of sexualizing a minor. Yet the controversy only fueled the obsession. By the end of 1981, Brooke had graced over 400 magazine covers, a record few adults, let alone teenagers, could match. She was earning approximately $10,000 per day, a figure that made her one of the highest-paid models in the world. In the same year, she published her first photo book, On Your Own, which sold over 100,000 copies in its first few months. Hollywood followed the hype. Brooke was offered starring roles in major productions, from Endless Love, 1981, to Sahara, 1983. Endless Love, though critically divisive, earned more than $32 million worldwide and made its theme song by Diana Ross and Lionel Richie a global hit. But the movie also featured intimate scenes that reignited public debate. Once again, Brooke's performances blurred the line between innocence and sexuality, and the media fed on it relentlessly. She became both a role model and a target. Tabloids stalked her every appearance, dissected every gesture, and speculated endlessly about her personal life. At only 16, Brooke had experienced the kind of fame even seasoned stars feared. In interviews, she smiled, calm, poised, rehearsed. But those who knew her privately described her as anxious, guarded, and constantly watched. Every flashbulb was both validation and violation. Brooke Shields had reached the top.
Do you know them? No.
But what happens
but in
when the
Declare,
world's most
we all
desired
fam.
teenager
What?
realizes the world doesn't want her to grow up? By 1983, the world's obsession with Brooke Shields had reached fever pitch, and then began to turn on her. The same cameras that once celebrated her beauty now hunted for flaws. The same headlines that praised her poise began to question her worth. Hollywood had built her up as the perfect doll, and now it wanted to see her crack. Her movie Sahara, 1983, flopped disastrously, earning only $1.4 million in the US against a budget of $25 million. Critics tore her apart. One review from the New York Times called her performance a triumph of marketing over talent. The golden girl of the 80s had suddenly become a punchline. But the fall wasn't just professional, it was personal. The years of overexposure began to take their toll. By her late teens, Brooke suffered from severe anxiety and panic attacks, often before public appearances. She later revealed that during interviews and photo shoots, her hands would shake uncontrollably, a side effect of living under scrutiny since infancy. At 18, she enrolled at Princeton University, determined to reclaim her identity. Yet even there, privacy was an illusion. Paparazzi camped outside dormitories, classmates secretly sold stories to tabloids. In 1987 alone, her name appeared in more than 2,000 U.S. publications, many speculating about her virginity, a theme the media had grotesquely fixated on for years. One notorious incident occurred in 1985, when Spy magazine published a virginity timeline, mocking Brooke's public statements about remaining abstinent. That article was shared across over 100 national outlets, turning a teenager's personal life into late-night comedy. The same public that sexualized her as a child now ridiculed her for innocence. Her mother, Terry, who had managed her career from the beginning, began drinking heavily. Their relationship deteriorated under pressure. Brooke described it years later as a bond built on love and fear. By 1986, she publicly fired her mother as manager, a decision that broke both professional and emotional ties. Despite the pain, Brooke tried to maintain composure. She appeared in talk shows, speaking politely about her normal college life, but the truth was darker. She once confessed that she didn't know who she was without an audience watching. By the late 80s, Brooke Shields was no longer America's sweetheart, she was a survivor of an industry that had consumed her childhood and spat her out. Hollywood had wanted her image. The world had taken her innocence. Now, Brooke was left with the one thing fame had never taught her to handle: silence. By the early 1990s, Brooke Shields had disappeared from the spotlight she once ruled. Hollywood had grown bored, chasing younger faces, new scandals. But Brooke, for the first time, wasn't running toward the camera. She was running away from it. After graduating from Princeton University in 1987 with a degree in Romance languages, Brooke began rebuilding her life piece by piece. She refused the easy route: no quick talk shows, no scandalous interviews. Instead, she turned to the stage, performing in Broadway productions like Grease, 1994, and Cabaret, 2001. Critics were surprised. She wasn't a child star chasing nostalgia, she was an actress fighting for credibility. Her cabaret run sold out every night for 6 months, reintroducing her as a serious performer, not a poster girl. But true rebirth rarely comes without another storm. In 2003, Brooke gave birth to her first daughter, Rowan. What followed was not joy, but darkness. She battled postpartum depression, a condition she later described as feeling hollow, like I had lost myself completely. The media, of course, seized on her confession, but this time, Brooke refused to hide. Her memoir, Down Came the Rain, 2005, detailed her struggle with brutal honesty. The book sold over 700,000 copies worldwide and sparked a national conversation about maternal mental health. Her openness encouraged countless women to speak out, including celebrities like Gwyneth Paltrow and Adele years later. Brooke had once been the face of exploitation, now she was the face of survival. In the same year, a public feud erupted when actor Tom Cruise criticized her for using antidepressants, calling it irresponsible. Brooke responded with dignity and clarity, saying, "Depression is not something you can just will away. It needs compassion, not judgment." Her calm rebuttal was praised across the medical community, and mental health hotlines reported a 30% surge in calls following the controversy, proof that her voice was helping others heal. Throughout the 2000s, Brooke found balance, starring in the sitcom Suddenly Susan, earning 2 Golden Globe nominations, raising her daughters, and becoming an advocate for women's rights and mental health awareness. The same media that once dissected her youth now celebrated her resilience. The girl who had been marketed as a fantasy had become a woman of truth, using her story not for fame, but for purpose. And for the first time in her life, Brooke Shields wasn't performing for the camera. She was finally living for herself. Today, Brooke Shields stands as one of Hollywood's rare survivors, not because she escaped fame, but because she learned to own it. What began as a story of exploitation became a lesson in endurance, identity, and reclaiming one's voice. Her career has now spanned more than 5 decades, from child model to actress, author, and advocate. She has appeared in over 50 films and television projects, written 2 best-selling memoirs, and built a personal brand that continues to evolve. On social media, her following exceeds 2 million, proof that audiences still connect with her, not for scandal, but for strength. In recent years, Brooke has used her platform to speak openly about body image, mental health, and the pressures of celebrity culture. Her 2023 documentary, Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival to critical acclaim, with 95% positive reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. The film drew over 10 million views on Hulu within its first month, a new generation watching, many in disbelief at what she endured. Through it all, Brooke never sought revenge against Hollywood. She sought understanding. She once said, "I spent years being told who I was. Now I get to decide." Those words echo for countless women who were told to smile, stay quiet, and fit the frame. Her story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths, about beauty, control, and the industry's appetite for innocence. But it also offers redemption, the idea that even after being broken in public, one can rise in private. Brooke Shields was once the face of America's obsession. Now, she is the mirror, reflecting the cost of fame, the power of survival, and the quiet, defiant grace of a woman who refused to be defined by anyone else ever again.